Now, like I promised in the last session, I was going to drop this thing down to 1920 in the resolution with a DE stop of 3, and it's coming up on the end of the rendering. Look at that, I'm like 25 seconds, 27, 28, 29, 30 seconds to render. Okay, now, on 1920, 30 seconds to render at a DE of 3 compared to the 4K 3840 at a DE stop of 5, which took 2 minutes. So you kind of getting the math here. Half the resolution, but a better DE stop value, better meaning lower. And I got pretty decent rendering time. Let's see what things look like down in here. Let's be fair about this now. Let's get a good detailed view. All right, 1920. All right, I got pretty good detail in here. I don't see a whole lot of white spots. Right in here, you see those little white specks along the way. Those are obviously oversampling. However, it's probably not going to bother me, and the viewer, if they ever saw that, would probably think, hey, that's pretty cool. That's just specular highlights. That's all that is. All right, this looks pretty good. 1920. Pretty good resolution. This is probably a good enough for an animation. But I got this thing down to 30-second rendering time at a DE stop of 3. I'm wondering now if I might be able to get the DE stop even lower, and I'm going to take a sampling of that right here. You see these white dots here? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the DE down to 1.5, and I'm going to render that out. We're going to do it live so you can see that I'm not cheating. I'm going to leave my view just exactly where it is. DE of 1.5, punch it. All right, let's see what we got. Okay. All right, this is a DE stop of 3 as a DE stop of 1.5. Now check this out. I have better detail. There's more detail that's coming out, and I have more oversampling. I got more white spots than I had over here. I have the white spots along the edges, but not as many. I have basically discovered that I can have higher detail. There's more detail in the object than over here in the 3, but I have more oversampling than I had in the 3, which makes sense because the rays are trying to be more accurate. So basically a DE stop of 1.5 doesn't really work for me here. It gives me more detail, but I get more white spots. Now, will that bother me if I draw this out? Will all these white spots bother me? Probably not. Would I rather have more detail in this scene? Absolutely. Can I live with more detail and more white spots? Absolutely. Can I live with a 30-second render? Absolutely. Now, 30 seconds times 10,000, you do the math, and that's how long it takes your computer to render the whole animation. I prefer more detail, and I can accept more white dots, because in this scene, those white dots are going to get lost visually. No viewer is ever going to go in this far in an animation. Give me detail any day. Detail first, minimum noise, minimum white spots, and best possible render in that order. Especially in a situation like this, where I've got all that detail in the scene. And I'm going to go one step further. Why not? I'm here. Let's capture this. Let's capture this. Got to get my DE stop in there. All right. We're going to do one more test here. I'm going to set this DE down to 0.8 just because I like the number. Let's calculate this. Okay, I'm 35 seconds, 36.7, 38. Okay. So I've added 8 seconds to each of the render. Not a big deal. All right, by going from 1.5 to 0.8. All right. And I picked up I picked up more detail. There's more detail here than here. But look at all my white dots. I got a whole bunch of white dots over here. So the upshot of this is that I haven't really, by going lower on the DE stops, I haven't really improved my situation. I got a good rendering time. I got really good detail, but you know, now I got more white spots all over the place, which may not hurt me that much, but I don't like it. And I'm the artist. I get to choose what I like or don't like. Now, the 3 was okay. The 1.5 was okay. I'm going to go for a 2. I'm going to render that. And this is all just second nature stuff. You just go fiddle with it. Talking about it seems to take forever. But when you're actually working with it, you just kind of go do it. No big deal. Here's a DE stop of 2. I didn't get the render time again. But here's my DE stop of 1.5. Now I got slightly less detail, but I have a lot less white dots. So I'm going to stay with a DE stop of 2. All right, so here's my scene. Not bad. Look at that. Those white spots can barely even be seen at this view size. You know, and you know, who's going to watch this? Who's going to watch this animation? Are they going to put this on a 85-inch LCD and watch it? Probably not. All right, where that thing is going to take, even if I was to publish it as 4K, all right, the big old LCD is probably going to resize it, resample it anyway. All right, so who's going to watch this in such a large viewing device that they're going to see my little white dots? I don't want too many. I don't want too few. Too many starts to degrade the quality of the image. Too few puts the work over on my side, where I've got to get my computer to render something for 5 days when I didn't really have to. So the last thing that's going to be said about this DE stop, this is one of several properties related to the internal rendering of the 3D environment. With the DE stop, you're looking for, and this is the last time I say it, unless I say it again, with the DE stop, what you're looking for is minimum oversampling, which visually equates to white dots and black dots. You want the maximum or the best possible rendering, which equates to the details. The details are rendered, and the best compromise with rendering. So oversampling, image quality, and rendering is what you're looking for. And you have to keep in mind your final destination. A still, I'm going to spend more time, and I don't care if it takes a day to render it. If I like the quality of that still, that's what it's going to be. And animation, I understand that I'm going to have 5 or 10,000 of these things popping out. And so there I'm looking for a good compromise between oversampling, white and black dots, image quality, and detail, and render time. Enough said. That's it for DE stop. A critical part of your work when it comes to quality. And there's some other things that we can do now to improve the quality. But we're going to stop with the DE stop. And in the next session, we're going to move on. So I'll see you there.